Right, I suppose we'll start. Ayubowan, Vanakkam, and good evening to those of us who are joining in from Sri Lanka. I'm not in Sri Lanka. I'm Sanjana Hattatu. I'm joining from New Zealand, where it's an ungodly hour at the time of recording this. But I'm very, very happy to be joined by Movind Binoy, who is in Sri Lanka for the second talk of the 5th edition of Support Local Art Talk, Resisting, Reacting, Responding, and Rebelling, Art in and as Protest. It is an ungodly hour. Movindu, apologies for bungling that introduction. What I will not do, however, is to introduce Movindu. Judging by the amount of likes that the Saskia Fernando Gallery got on Instagram for this talk, I have no doubt that it is one that is well attended live online as we speak, and that Movindu's reputation and fame as an artist in the country requires really no introduction. So thanks, Movindu, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Sanjay. Really excited to be here, and finally we got to chance to
have a chat.
Have a chat about everything.
Yeah. And I know that's great because I must confess that I am a huge fan of yours. I've been following your work for a while now with SFG in particular, with your visual output, but also during the Aragale, from what you put up on Tumblr and Instagram. I think a lot of us kind of were fascinated by your take on what was unfolding just over a year ago. It seems almost it seems much further down the road and in history, but it was just a year ago, and it was phenomenal what you've done since then with generative AI as well. So I think that you're quite unique in the country for what you do and how you do it. So it's fabulous that we finally get a chance to talk. And I don't know where to quite start, but perhaps I think the story of how you started, what you're best known for, well, if I can call it that, what you're known for with the Saskia Fernando Gallery. You're known for many things. You're known for films and music, which we'll talk about later, but with the gallery, you're known for collages, and I think a lot of people already who would have followed your work know you for that and know how you started. So I won't ask you how you started your collages, but I will ask, in the exploration as you do best in Sri Lanka around digital mediums, Movindu, digital art is not new, but the way you do digital collages in the context of traditional art forms, how do you see it fit within the broader paradigm of artistic output?
I think with what I do with collages, or how I started exactly, it was like a sort of a mishap, sort of like a sort of Frankenstein moment, because I initially wanted to make a meme using one of Johan Medang's, one of the painters in Sri Lanka, and using his painting and sort of convert it into a meme so I can share with him. And then it kind of changed into something else, which I found really interesting. Then I completely jump into the whole dimension of collages to explore more, understand what artists do with collages and how they sort of juxtapose these images in quite interesting way. But me getting into collage was quite accidental, because I didn't have any idea of okay, I'm going to make a collage.
Yeah.
But
we talked about it when we chatted last week or 2 weeks ago, where you get this, you seem to be getting this feedback that you're not really an artist unless you do canvas or sculpture. Do you still get that, or do you have to still justify what you do?
Right now, not very often. Not very often. But in that conversation, people get sort of a little bit hazy, not understanding what I do exactly.
Yeah. So if your parents are watching this, what would you tell them?
I highly doubt they're watching this, but yeah. And it's like a very fixed thing. Especially in Sri Lanka, the spectrum is really small. You don't have much of a palette when it comes to art. Like if somebody's a painter, it's like strictly a painter, like traditional painter. I mean that's great. And somebody like me who just jumps between mediums constantly, and even I don't know myself, it took me many years to understand what I'm going to do exactly, because I wanted to be a filmmaker at a point, then a musician. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to miss that part. I'm going to miss making visuals if I become just a musician. So I just couldn't figure out what exactly what I will call myself. But
Yeah.
interestingly, I didn't want to stop what I do with multiple mediums. And I think the easiest, best, or the simplest way to call it, like being an artist.
You know, when I was looking at the SFG brochure catalog for Survival of the Fragile, which was the 2022, one of your 2022 works. I mean, I just love the series that you had, Protesting Color. You had 1 to 5, and then you had 5 in Roman numerals. There's something ephemeral about it. I mean, the point is that I can never see it in any other way other than recollect the original image, because these were iconic things that you had, you know, with your process, used AI to create something new, layering and so on and so forth. I mean, you can talk about that process a bit later, but I do wonder, Movindu, you know, I was, you know, wondering, have you ever talked to somebody who was not part of the Aragalaya, maybe even not from Sri Lanka, and asked how they perceived the, you know, that particular series in Survival of the Fragile that you did on the Aragalaya?
Yeah, for sure. I think many connected strictly with the aesthetic approach.
Right. Yes.
Protesting Color series. I think that was one of the main intentions too, to make them look like it was sort of larger than life, sort of Renaissance-like feel, other than just like figuring, not give like a whole sort of a, what do you call, like photojournalist or sort of news-like feel. I would like more aesthetic and more grand, sort of beautiful kind of effect. And the people who actually I spoke to, they found it really mesmerizing to a point. Many of them thought they were like actually painted on canvas, and nobody ever guessed probably it was done with AI, because it was not so popular when I was using that. But everybody understood and sort of resonated with the idea of like those images having the larger than life sort of Renaissance-like feel.
I wanted to probe that a bit more, because, you know, how do you then locate your, I mean, the Aragalaya was political, right? I mean, for us, you know, you've talked about it, you've talked about the Aragalaya, we can talk about it a bit more, but how do you then, if it is just appreciated for the aesthetics of it, how, you know, how does that gel with whatever that you had in its creation, in its embrace of a political movement and movement?
Yeah, and when the Aragalaya was happening, one of the first few collages or digital artworks I created was very violent. I didn't actually post them anywhere because they were strictly violence. It's very much visual violence with similar familiar faces, political figures, like pretty much, yeah, it's very horrific. Then I realized throughout the case of the 80s riots, 70s, of course, the Civil War, we have had, like, we even still do now, lots of visual violence. So people get more agitated and people feel more violent or feel aggressive. And I thought, like, it's kind of obvious and kind of cliche in my head too, if I just publish these works and get people more agitated or just aggressive. And I didn't want to have that effect on anybody, and of course on me. Then I kind of changed the whole idea or the theme, where I thought, like, I'm going to create artworks which will look more celebrated, though it's very critical time, though it's more political, to attract more, what do you call, like, more popular audience, more like a mainstream audience, where people
broader audience,
broader audience, exactly, where people can just like resonate completely for the energy without getting caught in the action, or just feel like strictly violent for the sake of being violent. And I'm not saying like you can definitely use violent imagery to like get more people attracted and get the get the right reaction.
Yeah.
And at the same time, other artists were creating like not like particularly artists, like people were creating more memes and more violent memes also. So I was like, I don't want to just rush into that pool. I'm going to make completely something else, which will more look celebrated, not during the Aragale, even after Aragale, where people can just look back and feel it was more like a celebratory sort of revolution and the kind of event than just people being on the road for the sake of being on the road. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. I want to fast forward and then go back if that makes any sense, because I'm looking at your Tumblr and it's just gorgeous, right? I mean, this stuff that you produce is so visually unique and compelling, and there are so many questions I have, but there's one on 4 years since Easter Sunday bombings on your Tumblr blog, and it's a collage, right? I think the title is They Knew and They're Still Here. And when you compare and contrast that with the Survival of the Fragile, the Protest in Color series, it's more it's more a pastiche, it's phantasmagoric, it's as you said, a Renaissance painting.
Yeah,
the color, it's a dream state almost.
Yeah.
Which I think is a result of how you did what you did.
Yeah.
Whereas the other stuff on your Tumblr blog is really sharp. It's more, if I can call it, traditional collage.
Yeah.
Digital collage. What prompted that stylistic take, Movindu, for what you did during and on the Aragale, in comparison to even your later work, actually?
Yeah. I didn't have much time to sit down with the computer or just like sketch around and see what I can come up with exactly, because I was just running around as everybody else, just like being part of the protests and all of that. And like being a huge fan of Renaissance work and Baroque period, Caravaggio, all of that. I always wondered like how things would look like, or any subject would look like, if you exaggerate it to a point where it looks like a Renaissance painting. I see Renaissance as like grand exaggeration, not in a bad way, like it's very holistic, very, very grand. And I think even now that's my sort of main aesthetic practice, where I try to like sort of juxtapose and recontextualize things, where I get like obvious influence from Renaissance painting. So my main intention was take these images, take these existing photographs from friends that I know, and some of the photographs I took them in my phone, and make them look like you can imagine that painting on like in a cathedral, like it looks like very worship-like. So that was the main intention, aesthetic. That was the very first intention that I want to go with. And since I didn't have much time, I used this AI app, which was very basic app that I can use in my phone while I was running here and there. I was just like getting all these images and just like processing it like till I get up to 80 to 100 images from each, and then I just cut it down, say like 20, 10, 5, then tweak things here and there with Photoshop.
I think just to place that in context, we might have forgotten that you didn't have electricity, you didn't have bandwidth, your 14-hour blackout. So, for the listener today, I don't think that the work that you did and how you did it in the context that you did it is fully appreciated unless we kind of really mention the challenges of production at the time.
Yeah, I think like it's very obvious. Nobody could actually do anything with that. Not being able to charge your phone properly, not having electricity, and definitely not artists. Like everybody just felt like very anxious and definitely not to produce any artworks. I very much wanted to run the other way and produce whatever I can. And I think one of the most productive years of my life, to be honest.
Hey, I mean, I want to fast forward to some of your more recent work. I mean, again, if you go to movindu.tumblr.com, you can see all of your output, but your more recent output as well. which is the kind of stuff that you put up at Saskia Fernanda Gallery as well. And one of the immediate questions is, where do you get the stuff to make your collages from? Because it seems to be a pastiche of archival material, Sri Lankan, pop art from the 80s, magazine stuff.
Yeah.
Where do you go to for, to
Usually I just do the basic research as everybody is, like starting from Google Images to expanding it to Pinterest, Tumblr, and finding photo archives in Flickr. I think it's kind of not easy. If you have if you get into the right rabbit hole, it's very much you can find very most Western imagery. It's very hard to find local images. That's why you see the same 5 or 10 colonial images shuffling here and there, because those are the only available good resolution ones. And then I started digging more deep, because I want to find more local material and just take pictures from these Sri Lankan comic books and just posters, and then finding groups in Facebook who appreciate this aesthetic, and asking people who know anything about this, just building my own archive. And there's no particular one site or one search for that.
But do you scan some of the stuff yourself, or is it all already digitized?
I did some material. I did scan by myself, and it's really hard to find because people actually who know the value of these old 80s or 90s retro Sri Lankan magazines, they don't even let you touch. So it's, you can only take a photograph. And people who doesn't have sort of that taste or collection, probably they don't have anything in good condition, or probably lost. Or that's why it's I think good thing in Facebook, people having multiple these trillion other Facebook groups that you can find this archival stuff, especially the Sri Lankan imagery. You can find that.
You mentioned Renaissance art and artists as individuals and artists, and a practice of art that has inspired you, and you're inspired by. But with the assemblage of images and the art of collage, is there any one movement or artist or practice that you have been or are influenced or informed by, or a riff off from?
I don't think I can just pin down one movement or one artist in that case. But again, going back to Renaissance imagery or the Baroque paintings, I definitely use them as a reference for many of my compositions, because they have very, very beautiful compositions. I don't know how they did it back in the time, but those are very eye-catching, very strong compositions, and it's always kind of excites me to see how I can just extract these compositions, not technically copy them, but see how I can fit those compositions into a very local context, and see how we could work, sort of a complete two different worlds, and find my way to compose them together.
When you've talked about this, and I think that in the conversation that we had about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, and also actually in my own what I've seen you put up, there is a real emphasis on indigeneity and an organic expression of Sri Lankanness. Even in the generative AI, which we can talk about a bit later. How does that identity move into really inform you? I mean, clearly it's very important in your work and in your output, but tell us a bit about that.
I think it's simply the influence of me growing in the 90s and being a middle class, single Buddhist middle class son. Because I always get fascinated when people say oh, these certain aesthetics are very techy or very kitsch. They find it a bit what do you call it, out of place, or sort of not up to a good taste, right? And for example, people think, most Sri Lankans think anthurium is like anthurium flower is a very techy thing.
Yeah.
And but interestingly, I saw like anthuriums everywhere when I was growing up in the garden, in cousin's place, and I didn't find it tacky at all. And in most cases, the sort of tackiness is what I'm interested, like get like highbrow art and somewhat relatively lowbrow art, and then find a middle ground where I can just put these together. And even like what you see in Sri Lankan buses, Sri Lankan tuk-tuks, and not particularly the sort of colonial Ceylon aesthetic. Particularly, I think people kind of understand that. I think it's how people consume it in a way.
Yeah.
But when it comes to certain, even with music, how people think these are very mainstream, or these are very sort of lowbrow taste. I find it really interesting. Because what makes like how we are so trying to align with these tasteful elements, calling one is grand and one is not. For me, I find it really interesting, and that's why I'm very much drawn to. Even if I make one collage, I'll make sure I have this sort of kitsch in element in the collage, and that's not something I'm just like sort of just putting it there for the sake of having it on the collage, but for my own amusement, see how it would work.
So it is a conscious effort, right? It's not.
It is very much. It is very much.
Right.
Even,
that's right.
Yeah. Even with my music, I'll make sure there's like some sample, some tune, or some sound where people were like, "Oh, you can use it like that." I was like, "Yeah."
I forget the title. Maybe the one with on the Aragale with the anthuriums and the heart in the middle with the two women.
Yeah,
on the side.
I can't remember the title either, but yeah.
Yeah, but that was so with the landscape and the people at the bottom and the barbed wire right at the bottom. I know it's etched in my mind, even though I can't remember. And anthuriums are central to that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like completely forgetting about the theme of the collage and just particularly looking at the aesthetics, like even the tactical vest is kind of cool now. Like again, like rappers wearing it, like it's sort of like a fashion statement. Even the barbed wire. Everybody thought when Pamela Anderson had like a barbed wire tattoo, it was tacky. Now it's coming back. People having it on forehead. And using that and using somewhat local tacky anthurium and see how it would work aesthetically, I think it works super well.
No, and the juxtaposition is always a fascinating element. The highbrow to the pop art icons, and the the grandmasters through to Sarasavia and the Sri Lankan pop art history. It's a fascinating thing that you do in how you produce that stuff. I did want to move into 2021 and the pandemic, when you were in Paris. Doing a residency. And you've talked about this, you've been interviewed about this, and I was reading that, and I did wonder, how did that, if at all, and to any degree, change your artistic perspective, given the kind of cross-cultural interactions you'd have had in Paris, and particularly at that time?
Yeah. I think it was, though it was very limited because there were very limited interaction and going through queues and getting tests and all of that. And it was summer, right? And I think Europe being Europe and specifically Paris being Paris, nobody really cared about like pandemic stuff after a point. So it was not socially that strict, but it was, most of the places were closed, no particular social gathering. It was kind of less summerish. But for me, it was very interesting, of course, being there for the first time, and kind of like sort of a privilege for me to have this sort of step back and see everything from outside and looking and understanding, see what exactly going through and what's exactly happening in Sri Lanka and pandemic and all of that. I think that was like a sort of a grand step back, and that I had the privilege to look back at it in that sense. And that's how that's where I like had the idea for Survival of the Fragile as well, because taking that step back understood me all this time we were taught about the survival of the fittest, and like the fit will survive, and you have to be fit and you have to do this and that, like even. But looking back at it even now, like the storytellers, the ones who actually stayed home, like, and who managed to go through all of their memories and try to like present them again in a very beautiful way, use aesthetics instead of weapons or vaccinations. And those who are actually fragile kind of survived, and looking at them like on like a very mainstream angle, the people who we lost in pandemic, we thought like those like very strong people, not physically, even mentally, and we saw more than physical breakdowns. We saw too many mental breakdowns, and it was very eye-opening to see, like, especially when it comes to Sri Lanka, we don't have like very strong support system or anything at all about mental health. And so I was looking at all of this from like a third point of view, third person's view, and it was really interesting for me to see how it was all happening. And I didn't want to participate directly or take action while it was happening, but I was just being in a corner, just looking at all of this and taking my notes down. That was.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you meet any people who had grown up in the diaspora, millennials?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and how did that go?
Managed to meet two people, and one is a dancer called Usha. She's very famous now, and other member of a crew as well, because it was very limited. Nobody was really traveling, and I didn't want to because since I wanted to video them, that was my project, video them, I had to meet them somehow. And conversations are really interesting, and the one thing I realized was very much lost in translation, because not that what you call, like, obviously not media doing any great work, and you really need to have like a one-to-one conversation and talk about like the diasporic issues and Sri Lankan issues, the miscommunication between Sinhala and Tamil, and how they react to it and how I react to it. And after a point, like, I can, to a certain degree, I understand how Sri Lankan people react when they even hear the word diaspora.
Yeah.
Right. And to a certain degree, in their extreme cases, they sort of react in a very interesting way when they hear the Sinhala word, and in most cases, Sinhala Buddhist. So I felt like everything was lost in translation, because nobody was really having a dialogue or like on one-to-one and talk about these things, other than being very mysterious or being extremely political without being open up in a very personal manner.
And did that, sorry, final question on all of that is,
yeah.
Did that influence and impact the production of what you did over there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because when I really didn't want to make a film, it was a short film. I didn't want to make a film just about the diaspora, because like I think we have enough material talking about diaspora and still not doing, in my head, not doing great justice. I want to make something really popping and something really positive, or not in a political sense, but like in a very historical sense, like something fast moving, something very something very popish. And the whole conversation influenced it a lot, and the music I used changed while I was talking to them. The whole pop preferences changed, and exclusively the pacing of the film changed, because I was thinking about something more subtle and something more conversation based. But I realized since I was talking to millennials, we were and we are about movements. We are just like very excited and we are just very agitated about things. So I wanted to have that movement in the film too. So it was very not like a typical what do you call like very documentary style. You don't get to see that in short film that I made there.
Now, have you shown that film? Just so that
I showed it. I had one public screening at the bakery space here,
Right.
Sri Lanka.
Right.
And I think it's online. I can't remember which site.
Okay, that's fine. Because I haven't seen that and I would love to see it, and I'm sure many on the
Yeah,
call
sure.
do as well.
Definitely find the link for you.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I mean, I think that a large part of why lots of people would have joined this call is to maybe hear you talk about for a variety of reasons, but certainly for your take on generative AI and the way you use AI. You've already touched upon it with regards to your Aragale output. Broadly speaking, are there any philosophical, practical considerations in your embrace of AI in what you do and how you do it, Mohinder?
Yeah, I constantly think about and constantly see how the dialogue changes day by day about AI, and even the immediate reaction from the people, specifically from artists. Everybody was saying like it's going to take artists' jobs. But I was thinking like, if that's the case, it's good. Then we can build a whole conversation about who's an artist. And in many cases, when I talk to some of the people who actually felt like threatened, it will take them out of their jobs. What they're doing right now is being the software operators. They have little to no creative control over whatever the project they are doing. So if just client says something, they just operate the software. So I was thinking like, so if you can get AI help to make it more fast and keep the client happy and get your bucks and go home, I think it's kind of good. But when it comes to completely practicing as an artist, I don't think AI is a challenge for me or like a threat for me, because it's interesting because in most cases, what I do is I just take things out of context and put them in a different to another context. So whatever the easy tool that I can find, I jump into it and use it.
Yeah.
And for an example, in my music, I use my phone to record all the voices. And surely I should get a good mic. I should go to a studio, but I want to have that sort of lo-fi quality in my song. So if I go to studio spending more money and again make it more low quality, why would I record it low quality?
Yeah.
Right. So that's my logic in most cases. And even with film, the Kota Baba film that was shot in like a very dingy handicap. So I very much interested using like different types of technology, low tech, high tech, and use them to my advance and save more time so I can do more projects, because I'm very patient in that sense.
I remember a lot of artists during the Aragalaya who put up stuff on Insta and wherever, Facebook and all over the place, really. On the websites, I got it over WhatsApp, and it was a different aesthetic. It was, I don't know how to quite communicate this, but it was very obviously AI generated.
Yeah.
Which is not to say, I'm not juxtaposing, I'm not creating a hierarchy. It was just, just saying visually.
Yeah.
And when I look at your output, there's a bit more reflection, a bit more nuance. You've clearly, not allowed the technology to take the lead. You are in control.
Yeah.
It's not immediately obvious. The aesthetic is a very different one. So that is why I say that what you do and how you do it is actually quite unique in Sri Lanka at the time we're recording this. Where do you see this going, Mohinder, in the way that you do it, in your form? Where do you see this going? Because, in the conversation about AI is also changing so dramatically that it's really hard to kind of project what we'll be talking about in terms of generative AI, even 2-3 months ahead. So where do you see your journey with AI going with the pace of the evolution of tech, and also in the manner in which you've embraced and you mold it?
Yeah, sure. I think the right now my interest is like when we say AI or artificial intelligence. So I think we feel very threatened when we hear the word intelligence, and uh, and it's interesting to say intelligence. We only think about human intelligence. How about plants? How about animals? There's like multiple versions of intelligence, and intelligence itself is the what you call ability to process information. So if that's what you think the intelligence is, definitely this is artificial intelligence. But in my head, what I'm thinking, like in my practice, aesthetically or using it for art, I think the human touch, the human errors, it's going to be very, very important and very expensive in that sense. I think there will be like a different, a new abstract art movement just to prove that human touch is more important. I think just one brush mark on a canvas will be very expensive, not in the context that we experience it right now. Just because like we have too many very perfect, gorgeous AI artwork available, and it's really hard to make something ugly using AI. It's really hard. Everything's look pretty. If I make a human face, I'll make sure I'll just copy somebody's mole and put it on face because it's too perfect and you can see it.
Yeah.
And with these new graphics, eye changes. And I remember when the first Avatar movie came out, my dad couldn't figure out if it was real humans or not. Right? And we can see the frame rate because we are so just to it. And right now, AI is scary for even for millennials because they don't understand if it's AI or not. People go to check the fingers, but they are fixing the fingers too.
Yeah.
But interestingly, a photographer can definitely identify if it's AI or not because it's very dead in the eyes. It's very soulless. I don't know how to explain it in a tangible way, but you can clearly see if you have some sort of idea, if you have seen multiple images with generated using AI, you can see it's not particularly, it's very synthetic, it's very artificial. It has its own aesthetic for sure, but it's trying so hard to copy what we do. And I'm not saying AI is not a threat at all, but I don't think it would surpass us just like that. And I think though it's not too far away even for a what you call artificial general AI, but I think this is one interesting analysis. I think Sam Harris said that he said like the connection between us and ants. We don't hate ants, but we don't particularly save them, but we just crush them while we are walking. If you are making new building, we just like what you call eliminate them just like that.
Yeah.
I think with AI, that would be the case with us. So it won't be a thing that AI just generally hate us. And it would be like, it's not particularly their business, kind of way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we project our own consciousness to artificial intelligence, thinking about all evil things because we are evil. What if we control it, convey it to something really beautiful, something more grand? We can always use that. I think this is the right time for sure.
You know, the question I have is, you use AI to critique socio-political realities.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't really critiqued using AI itself. So your critique is not one of technology, but about using AI to critique that which you have a gaze on. And I wondered whether that's something you thought about, because, you know, maybe listeners are not aware that it's not just the visual pastiche that you do. There's also on your Instagram, which I loved again, your Colombo family dinner, which was narrated, created, and rendered, and perhaps even edited using generative AI. And it's a fascinating short film. And you create this kind of stuff, but I go back to that question I wanted to ask, which is that, do you ever think about using it to critique AI itself?
I haven't done it yet.
Yes, clearly.
But
Okay.
I'm definitely but I'm definitely interested, and I'm trying to find a way how to do that exactly. For me, I think the reaction was initially because I was when the Mid Journey and DALL-E, when the boom was happening, I was so caught up to it. It was almost like gambling. I lost many money for that. So I want to just like detox myself from AI, and I started doing like drawings and oil paintings with pastels. And it was interesting, the whole conversation of people who actually sort of low-key attacked me saying you're using AI and all of that. They was like, oh, you can draw. I was like, apparently I can. And so it was sort of in my hitting, like challenging myself, like, look, AI is not going to go anywhere. For a change, sit down and draw. Then you have sort of time with your own soul. Be like, look, I can always go to pastels.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, that is a nice segue into my next question, which is, I mean, I'm sure others would know as well. You wanted to start off being a drummer, then gave up that dream, and then you became many other things. Maybe you'll go back to drumming. You're a musician. You're a filmmaker. When you look back at Movindu from about a decade or 2 decades ago to the Movindu of today, and speaking to Sanjana, how do you see your evolution as an artist, Movindu? And you can answer that any way you want. Did you see, obviously nobody could see generative AI happening, so that's out of the question. But, is this something that you always wanted to do? Even the collage stuff was, a couple of years ago. Talk to us about a bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. And interestingly, I'm doing the same thing while I'm doing now. And I did the same thing while I was just 10 or 12. Not I was making films, just I was doing like multiple things. And I think the transition was really smooth, and thanks to my parents. I don't know actually how they cope up with it, because I wasn't being very like expressive about it, and they didn't push me to do anything else. And it's really interesting because it's really hard in Sri Lanka. You don't get like very obvious examples, and it was really important to look up to figures who did try multiple mediums, or just who did like had their hand.
And sorry, just to interject, who would those figures be?
I can mainly name Budi Kirtisena.
Yeah,
he was doing multiple things, and and I had the chance of hanging out with him for like a couple of years. He introduced me to David Lynch and all of that. It was really interesting. So I was like, okay, it's a legit thing. You can do multiple things. The question is how I'm going to survive.
Which is always the question.
which is always the question.
Which is the question, yeah.
In most cases, whenever whoever asks like, what do you want to do in future? I want to do the same thing, but with more money. So it won't change. And it didn't change before, because I think right after schools, I think we all had the problem. Like, you always try to figure out who you are going to be, or to find a name, or make something to your name. And it was really difficult because I was constantly changing, and really hard to call myself one thing. And it was challenging, and also find recognition and find a solid ground to at least to prove something to your parents, so they'll be cool about it. And it's even now to this day, it's challenging as well, but it's interesting to see like many Gen Zs and many young ones is just making collages and doing multiple things. And I'm not saying like I directly influence them, but it's really nice to see like it's not a question anymore. So it's it has gone forward. So but
I think you're being too humble. You may have, it does make a difference to see somebody who's doing what many others aren't. I want to go to this wonderful interview that you did with Randula on YouTube, talking about Dead Lakshmis, the reveal, as it were. I mean, for those listening in, this was an artistic endeavor, which was fascinating in and of itself, purely AI-generated art, which was about a punk rock band, right?
Sorry?
It was about a punk rock band.
Yeah.
And you were talking about this, and there are so many questions that I had, but one of the things that was an offhandish comment that you make really struck with me. This was not a band that existed.
Yeah.
It was not a band that played. There is literally no way you could have heard it. But you got a comment saying that somebody remembers hearing the band. That's fascinating. No, the question I wanted to ask, Mumid, I just found that so interesting about, how we memorialize and how we remember, how, what do we remember? We in Sri Lanka talk about memorialization quite a bit with regards to the JVP or the LTTE and the problems and the politics about memorialization. But this was a challenge and a perspective I had never heard before, and I never thought was possible. Where, this comment was a person, I think, who said, yes, I remember that band. Have you thought about that? The reactions that you got, and in particular that reaction. That your art is powerful enough to create memory.
And I was really happy because like that was one of my main intentions, because that's why I sort of selected that particular period where we had sort of like a boom of rock music and metal bands, and having rock company label in Sri Lanka, having multiple gigs. Like that's the time where I got out from school. Stigmata was big and all of that, and I was thinking that's a very good time period. And I always that this Dead Lakshmi is not the particular name. The idea was lurking in my head. I wanted to make a Sri Lankan punk film, like, because it was mainly influenced by the American Muslim punk movement, Takvakos, right? So I was so moved by it, and I want to make like, look, let's make a single Buddhist punk scene, and it evolved into something else. And with Dead Lakshmi that I want to try, and I really wanted to make a EP using the same name, but I couldn't probably do it.
And you talked in that interview, you talked about your that art is a byproduct of your living. Is for you, is your perspective of art an extension of life itself in that sense?
I think yes, it's very much, because for me, I think in most cases it should be the main influence, because it's really interesting with young artists. They always seem to be caught up with like find the next big grant or sticking to one aesthetic and doing it for the entire their whole life. And I find it's a known way to go, and it's a boring way to go. And it's whoever is just writing a new thesis about post-war or neo-post-war or any situation had to have like some sort of experience, or do like, you can't just sit down and do a research, be like, okay, I understand. You don't understand. I never say in any case I did understand the war or the other or the Tamil. I only saw it on TV. It's very 4x3. Right. So I can only try. I can't even imagine. I'm very open about it, and I got like a lot of cases backlash about it. But so I think if I can't apply it, or if I can't like contemplate it in my real life, what's the point of just like putting it out there as like, look, you should think about it too, because I didn't. That's not a good way to go. Even let's take something really like a very personal, or just something very, what do you call, personal matter. Or I talk a lot about suicide and anxiety in my music, and those are very contemplated thoughts, because it can be really scary. My friends know this. I call them, if it's like a good weather, it's really raining, I call them like, what a fucking fantastic way to day to go. Because like not in a sad way. That's like, that's sort of contemplating, just like sitting back and just being bored. And when I just like sitting in one on a chair, just like doing nothing, I get like different ideas, and I just go on the rabbit hole in my head, like contemplating what it would be. And then I do the work, then I get on the internet. Because I can't just like get on to the next project without mingling it before.
In that, you also said the degree to which your friends have an impact on how you create and what you create. I think, if I'm not recalling it incorrectly, that you, in a sense, seek to impress your friends first, perhaps even. How much of an impact does that cohort have on what you do and how you do it?
Very much, actually. I just definitely I do most of the things first for my amusement. Then at some of the times be like, look, my other friend gonna dig this so much. Right? So I'm gonna at that element, and he or she gets it for sure. So that's my first audience. Or
Right.
like that's where I feel comfortable, and that's where I just be like, whatever critique that you have, just you can throw at me. Then the rest of the situation comes.
Sorry, just also riff off what you hinted at, this frustration I felt also in our previous conversation before our talk today about the strictly academic analysis of art.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, do you think that art should be critiqued in an academic or conceptual manner, or do you completely reject it?
No, I don't.
Practice?
I used to completely reject it, but I think it's really important. And even now, I'm pretty sure this will change too over the time. But even when it comes to films, I was very anti-mainstream films and like very pop films, like this. But I understand you because you need to have the top part of the fountain filled, so it just pouring down. Frogs and little rats like me can just feed right beneath that fountain, because you need to have that mainstream or the academic or the critique to have that first part of the fountain thriving. So you can't have an underground without popular culture. So you need to have that discussion, that
okay, I see what you
fancy
mean.
that glow happening. Then
Right.
you can have like your own scene. I think that's why the niche is getting more important right now.
So if your primary audience are your mates, and you have an ambivalent relationship with the academic appreciation of art in general, and maybe even more so with your art in particular, what is, Movindu, if at all, your measure of success in engagement, in depicting the themes that you do? How do you, as an artist, measure, that you kind of resonated with, a particular audience? And to be clear, outside your friends.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's definitely not quantity or number based. I think if somebody is having a bad day and if they might bump into one of my songs and it kind of goes the other way and they're like kind of having a good day, I think that's enough. At least like having one person influence to do something that they like, not the particular thing that I do. And that's enough. And in most cases, I don't think too far who would consume this, because I feel like we are not that unique. Me and my friends are not the only person who would enjoy this. There are people definitely out there, but it's a trick question if you find these people your niche in Sri Lanka.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's not that hard since we have internet and all of that. You're just like one DM away to reach that audience. So I think it's not something that really bother me in that sense. Yeah.
I want to, maybe wrap up before we go to audience questions with just quickly looking at your music and film, which is actually a great disservice to what you produced. Your YouTube channel is extraordinarily engaging. With music, though, I've used in my public lectures and also teaching your song Culprit, which the bass line, is just, when I'm down, I listen to Culprit. That's simply what it is. And it's explicit lyrics. If you understand Sinhala, I know Tittukunuharapa. Like actually, it's really, it's swearing. But two questions about that. How did you come about that name, Bo Said Kid? Because you remind me so much of this Indian rapper, Vivian Fernandez, called Divine. From Mumbai. We've talked about this. He's from the slums, extraordinarily intelligent. His lyricism and lyrics are socially rooted, very, very political, and extremely lyrical. And your particularly Culprit, but your music reminded me so much of his work. So how did that name Bo Said Kid come about, and maybe how did that song come about as well?
The name actually, it's just like something I came up with, because in most cases nobody really says my actual name properly. I have people call me, yeah, Manoj, Uvidu, yeah, all sorts. Like Manoj is the most unique part, yes. When I said Uvidu Binoy. And
right.
Because of that, and this is something really lame. Like when I want to make my first Facebook account, I want to have a pseudonym. So I took my Binoy B and O, I made it Bo Said Kid, because you need two names for that Facebook account. I really like the sound of kid. So I kind of went with it saying Said Kid. So Bo Said Kid doesn't have any meaning. Bo is just like sort of abbreviation of my middle name. And I use that for now.
That's fascinating,
for my music.
right? Yeah. And Culprit, you know, it was coterminous with artistic output as well.
Yeah, and with Culprit, I was like, that was me genuinely being frustrated and really angry. And that's one of the first tracks I actually swear in the track.
And just moving to, was that early Aragale or mid or late?
It was almost mid, something in the beginning and the middle. And it was the time where people actually started coming to Goldface, the protest area, and it was completely out of frustration. And I was like asking artist friends, like, create something, because nobody was actually doing anything. And I was like, it doesn't have to be about the protest, just make a love song, like just put more stuff out there. Just like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just for that, out of frustration, I was continuously making the artworks and music, and Culprit was like out of pure anger and agitation, and hence the lyrics also. It's like literally what's in the album art.
You're right. No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, and I was thinking about that.
That's the only thing I posted in visual way violently. I had many worse stuff. Like for a hint, it's very much close to. Have you watched the film? Shit, I can't remember the name. What do you call it? Hannibal
Lecter.
Holocaust.
No,
sorry.
No.
Yeah, Cannibal Holocaust. It's one of the first found footage films.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost similar to the post of the film. So it's bad. It's really bad. It's bad as in very gruesome.
Talking about found footage, I mean, I suppose the last way, you know, we can wrap up our convo with Kotta Baba, which you pitched as the first ever found footage film from Sri Lanka. And also Dead Lakshmis as well, you know, which is kind of, for me, the tie-in is that you are presenting artistic work in a fictional context. And, you know, some of the comments I was reading on Kotta Baba's YouTube, you know, YouTube comments, and particularly with Dead Lakshmis as well, that people really, you know, believe in it. Like they really believe that it was found footage. They believe that the Lakshmis were around. With, you know, so many questions about your film, but because we talked about it a bit as well, you expressed in our last conversation that there was a frustration you had with filmmakers in Sri Lanka today who want to be the next Spielberg, perhaps, you know, to embrace the aesthetic of a Kollywood, a Bollywood, or a Hollywood. Whereas for you, it's really about finding your niche. Doing what you can in the way that you can, and getting really actually quite good at it. You know, fan films, for example. Is that something that really is, in a sense, your religion? You know, that you really practice it. Is that something that you would really ask others to emulate as well?
And with films particularly, I really want to dive deep with more B-side kind of horror comedy dimension and create more work, because this is complete out of my personal frustration, because I think everything is getting more intellectualized for nothing, and everybody's just Jordan Peterson now, right? Everything is
Good God, yes. Yes.
Interject, like it's very serious. I'm not saying serious art is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but I resonate so much when I see a film and I see the filmmaker having fun. I know where the filmmaker stands, and you can see that in art too, because you can't just you can follow the formula and do the same thing, but you can see through it now because there's a lot of content. Unless you make something really that goes viral, and in Sri Lanka it's very easy to become famous because it's very little audience, and even with the found footage film, the first ever is kind of cringe, but like in Sri Lanka it's always the very first thing because nobody's really really experimenting further. Because whoever does something somewhat unique becomes the first in Sri Lanka. It's very easy. and I find it really interesting to find that niche and having the sort of very DIY quality where you feel it's very it's not well made. It's you can see the filmmaker if it's a film,
Right.
if it's,
Yeah.
if it's
But that's what you want, right? That's your aesthetic.
And
you're saying it's okay.
Yeah, completely okay. And like with the second film that I'm working right now, it's a bad film. It's intentionally bad film. And looking at all these like bad lip syncing, all these B-side films, but I'm really tapping like a very sort of local theme, you know, with like horror house and etc. And having the sort of early 70s comic book like poster, sort of John Carpenter aesthetic, and trying to bring that back. And it's very practical to produce, and it's fun to watch. And I'm not saying like having high art or more intellectual art is bad, but probably not my thing. And it's I am very interested to see like even with the second film, it's intentionally bad film. So if you make something intentionally bad, it's called taste, right? And it's always interesting for me to experiment with that idea and see how further I can go and blur the line between the audiences and the higher art and the low art. And it was really interesting. We had a screening of Kottababa at the gallery. The feedback was different and the vibe was different because it was that film showing in the gallery.
Yeah,
it's whole different ball game for me. It was really interesting.
Yes,
it was a cheap film.
Yeah.
And it's like a very local film. It doesn't talk about any social themes in direct way, but it does in a way. And showing it in the gallery, it's very interesting. And I really want to continue doing that, to take things out of context and recontextualizing, and see how further I can go.
Hey, Mohinder, we can talk for ages. I've got
yes,
two questions.
Of course.
One is kind of connected to protest in color and survival of the fragile. You know, going back to your Aragalaya time. Bo, can you explain your digital art projecting? I suppose projection at the old Parliament, which I found absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
It's a high point of the Aragalaya for me. Those of us who are not in the country were like rejoicing at the short-lived but beautifully done high-def projection mapping. And I suppose the question is to kind of talk about that. And it was who got that idea and explain the projection.
For sure. And definitely I can't take the full credit. I was just the part of that particular team. And it was really interesting to see when the Aragalaya was happening, a lot of new ideas roaming around. And it was honestly hard to tell who came up with this particular idea. It was mutual. It was sort of, everybody was manifested to this idea because everybody, in most cases, got the very same idea and just like, haha, we are all vibing to the same thing. So it was more like a collective conscious thing. Not like one person put up their hand up saying like, let's do the projection. Technically, the projection was done by Lalindra Amarasekara, one of the very fantastic technicians and artists in Sri Lanka who does projection work in like a very, what do you call, specific manner. And I provided
precision mapping,
one or two collages for the projection. And it was just a very quick thing. It lasted very small time. And it was really fun.
The second question is also about actually your music. Absolutely love your Hallucination Nation Part 2 from your album. Is it this track to, I don't know quite what it means. Is it this track to so-called musicians, artists not found at Aragale? I'm not sure what that question.
I think like asking if that certain track Hallucination Nation is sort of diss track, DISS, this track.
No, yeah, but yeah. Well, I mean, if you understood the question, yeah, is it about the Aragale or artists not?
No, it was right. It was very personal. Yeah, it's nothing because like most of the I think all the songs you hear in the album was made before Aragale.
Okay, so that answered that. Well, this is interesting. Out of all your musical work, which song do you like best? I don't think you ask an artist that question. Maybe you do?
There's one particular track which I recorded firstly as a solo artist. I still have that. I don't think I'll release it. It's the first single track I recorded. I still have that, and I think that's our.
Is it? Do you have a title for it at least?
Yeah, that's particular song is called Ashave. It's a single song. Yeah.
Okay. Harindri. And the final question is, how long the experience did it take to make the first, I suppose, how long did it take to make the first collage art? The first one.
How long as in the practice or the work itself?
The question is not very clear. How long the experience? I don't know whether it was a process or.
Technically, I never studied anything properly.
The practice. Sorry, there's a clarification. The practice.
Okay, so before the first collage, I didn't have any practice. Like it was just like a whole Frankenstein project. Then only I realized this whole genre called collages, and then I started studying after the first collage. It was like a very accidental thing. Yeah.
Okay, then I hope that answers it. I don't have any other questions on.
If I studied collages or art, no, I haven't.
Harshi or somebody from the gallery, please WhatsApp me if there are any questions coming through Facebook or any other medium that you have. But in the few minutes we have left, Movindu, I thought I'll maybe ask you about that great fad that we had with NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
Yeah.
Were you part of it? Because I mean, I have this piece I was reading in this month's Economist as well, which talks about just how it died. It's dead, you know, and some of that stuff, which was millions of dollars, is worthless now.
Yeah.
I remember talking about this with Saskia back in the day. You know, were you part of it? If not, why not? And what do you think?
Not. I only did one collaborative project. It was for this rapper hip hop artist called Sean Vincent DePaul. It was one of his projects, and I just did the image for him, and he did the the bidding and all of that. The main reason I tried many times. I probably get into it because of the money, to be really honest. And I couldn't wrap my head around or find the right time to go with the whole crypto scene and read about it and get into it. And I talked to a couple of friends as well. Like, if you can do the technical part, I can provide you content. And by the time it was all happening, I think it was just dying down. But interestingly, some of the artists I know, they earned many bucks while it was booming. Yeah,
while it was booming, right? Yeah.
Not now. Yeah.
But by that you mean Sri Lankan artists or just?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Sri Lankan artists who really got into the crypto scene and who managed to do the right aesthetic while it was happening. They got a lot of money. I think everybody jumped into it because of the money, I guess.
Well, parenthetically, and this is not related to art as well, the crypto scene for me really took off in a very bad way, actually, because there was a lot of dodgy stuff happening during the Aragale.
Yeah.
You know, all of these cryptocurrency, bros and these networks and, really worrying stuff, was because people needed money and they thought this was something that they could invest in. Anyway, so that's, also there are more questions. Does the again, I'm not sure what this question is. Does the drawing skill help you a lot to make collages?
Yes, very much. Yeah, because it's you can map everything out. I don't sketch collages, but you can sort of imagine in your head if you have basic kind of colors and compositions. Definitely it's helpful.
There is a question which I think I can also interpret in a certain way. Did you, it's quite cute. Did you start with Microsoft Paint? And I suppose what I'll ask, for the benefit of others listening is, what do you use for the work that you do in terms of tools?
Yeah, I definitely started with Paint, and I did my early tracks in Windows Movie Maker. Yeah. And right now I'm mainly using Photoshop. With AI stuff, I use Midjourney. AI stuff is very varied. Videos, AI video stuff, Runway, Gen 2, and even DALL-E. But mainly the editing software is Photoshop. In some cases, Illustrator too.
Okay,
yeah, it's very basic. With audio, it's Visual Studio. Yeah,
no, granted. The next question is, when will the next film be coming out?
Hopefully early next year, and we are planning to do like a proper international release. Everything goes well. Yeah,
this is the bad film that you talked about.
This is the bad film. This is the
intentionally bad film.
Intentionally bad film.
Bad film. Okay. Another question is, well, I don't know. I'm just going to read this out. Why do you hate mainstream art? I've seen you inspired from them.
I don't hate mainstream art.
Yeah, I don't know where this person
I don't hate mainstream art. I just I just hate the mainstream fan base. I think it ruined Buddhism. It ruined Mahinda Rajapaksa. Yeah.
Will it ruin you?
I don't know. That's why I'm not coming out of my comfort zone.
When is, I have no idea what this means. When is the Mia series out?
Okay. Mia is like a TV production that I'm co-directing with Chintana Dharmadasa right now. It's like it's actually a very mainstream thing. It will be on television hopefully within next month, I guess. I can't say a particular word because we are still working on it. Yeah, it will be out pretty soon.
So, and the same person is asking, when is your next album coming out? You clearly have a fan base tuning in.
I actually have lots of unreleased tracks, about 25 to 30. And I'm just sitting on them thinking what to do. But I don't have like a timeline with that. Because like with music is the most precious thing I have to myself. So I'm very hesitant to release constantly, unless I'm like really what you call reactionary to something. Yeah, maybe next year, I don't know. Yeah.
Perhaps moving to the final question is a bit of an oddball one, but I've always we've talked about how hard it is to get a Sri Lankan aesthetic ingrained into and as the output from Gen AI. I've seen your productions, I've seen the stuff that you put out, it looks extraordinarily.
Yeah.
It looks Sri Lankan, but we've talked about how the immediate prompt generation is a very Indian village.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very Indian aesthetic. The degree to which you produce now feeds into the corpus of training that will inform in the future. So, you're doing quite an important thing to put us on the learning curve for AI for artists to use in the future. But that aside, will we see Movindu do more with AI to create, in a sense, a Sri Lankanness in the
output? For sure. Yes, definitely.
What kind of things can we see from you in that regard?
I'm hoping I would be able to like a proper, not like a very abstract experimental film, but like something movie. Because that's very exciting for me. The AI film making is very exciting for me. And with image work, I am already using fragments here and there with AI, because I'm building my sort of own archive of images using AI, meaning I'm generating sort of my own images in Midjourney, so I save them and I reuse them again as my source for collages. And yeah, it's right now it's really hard to generate anything particular Sri Lankan. Definitely, I understand the geography. When you prompt Sri Lanka, you get bunch of coconut trees, right?
Yeah.
So it's very basic. It's almost like childlike. In some cases, it looks very Indian. I photoshopped some of the elements. It doesn't look so too Indian. It's like a very tricky thing. So it's always trial and error.
So 2 final questions. I'll put them in one, but they're from 2 different people. What about your novella? And is Salannepa? What's that single?
Salannepa. It's one of the
Salannepa. Oh my God, I can't read. Yeah, Salannepa, a suicide prevention letter to a friend.
To a friend? No, Salannepa is not a suicide. It's not anything for a friend. It's just for myself. Salannepa is a very suicidal prevention. Yeah, it's that song. And novella. I don't know how these people know about the novella. I just only post one thing on Facebook. Yeah, I have written a singular novella. It's like a romantic horror thing.
And so I suppose, is it out or is it coming out?
No, it's not out. I have finished it, but I need to like re-edit and see. I'm planning of photocopying and just give it to people. Not having like a proper book release or anything. Just like how you have these old skater zines that you photocopy.
Yeah. You know, I kind of grew up with that stuff.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The last copy, whoever gets it, like it's very faded, can't read. Stuff. Yeah.
All right, Momindu, I think we'll call it a close. This has been, at least for me, a very rapid 1.5 hours. I hope that the audience found it engaging as well. Clearly, you know, you have a fan base who tuned in. This was wonderful. Thanks, Momindu, for joining me and everybody on this on this recording and in this conversation this evening.
Thank you, Sanjana. And like finally, we got the chance to talk.
We got the chance to talk.
I'm really happy.
Good stuff. I know. I'm super happy about it. Thanks again, everybody, for joining in to the 5th edition of Support Local Art. We will see you again in the next month or so. Have a good evening and thanks again for joining. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.